geez, the entirety of Made in Abyss second season episode 4 was just full of what the hell moments. Like, okay, the toilet, the alleyway, the final scene, the final two scenes, the whole thing with some certain person showing up. By the way, obviously massive spoilers ahead. We're gonna be talking about episode 4 of Made in Abyss second season. But yes, Mitty, what the hell's Mitty doing? There's a side of me that kind of believes that Mitty is going to be like a projection, like a creation of some sort, something that is an illusion to draw Nanachi in order to stay there. Because based on what they were saying at the very end, based on that last little snip, that last little statement, but yeah, the entirety of this episode, the stuff behind Regu, just all these what the hell moments that I lost it for. I think episode 3 was fantastic. It just was incredibly cringy and hard to watch, hard to stomach. And we had a little bit of that again in this episode, like we're going to do it again. But this episode just had like tons of nuggets of information. Like I was starting to feel like I wanted some stuff to start to be revealed when I was watching episode 3. And episode 4 was like, oh yeah, by the way, here you go. Here's a whole bunch of information. Hey, you got enough yet? You got enough yet? That's how I kind of felt. But let's get into this, because there's so much to go through, and it's easier just to start from the beginning and go through. But one side of this whole episode is really around Regu confronting Faputa, and Faputa realizes, I found the thing I've been looking for, grabs Regu, doesn't like things looking at her, and then runs away with Regu. And that whole side of the thing was pretty much giving us an indication of Regu's past. Now, here's the oddity they're kind of adding in with it. It seems like it's very clearly stating that Faputa created or was involved with Regu in the past. And Regu was Faputa's. Like, Faputa claims that Regu is hers. And the entire time she's kind of trying to figure out, are you really the Regu I know? So she's checking him out and then stabbing his stomach was... Ugh. There's something about the belly button. Just something about... It's like the fingernails. I know the fingernails. It's just... Ugh. It hurts. But yes, eventually licking his blood and realizing, oh yes, you are my Regu. You said you would leave and you would find a Haku or something like that, which is essentially their most treasured thing. So she's wondering, is Riko or Nanachi your treasured thing? So it seems like whatever this Regu that she knew left her to go find some precious thing and bring it back. And now this Regu is here not knowing his past. Now, it does have a few snippets where Regu does recall memories of Faputa. So it's obvious that they are connected. The only real big question mark we're really adding into this conversation is that Faputa says, you're my Regu. And he says, I can't be Regu because I was named Regu when I went up to the surface. The surface people called me Regu. So there's the big weird thing there. The only thing I can think of is that I need to go back. I don't recall what drove Riko to call him Regu. Maybe there's something wrote in the paperwork that she got from her mother that mentions Regu, and so she named him after that. So her mother came down here, met maybe Faputa, met Regu, wrote that down in her book, and then Riko reading it, it was like subconsciously added to her to name Regu Regu. That's the only thing I can think of to answer that question, but either way, either that or something impressioned onto Faputa, and there's not really a huge connection there. But yeah, frustrated and realizing he really needs to get back to Riko and Nanachi, he leaves. This upsets her. Doesn't seem like she's too happy about the idea of Regu leaving her once again. And this is where he runs into a bunch of these eternal fortunes, these flower petals that are falling from the sky. They're typically used for celebrating funerals. And there's a whole bunch of name cards circling around him. And one of them says Shurumi cycles and returns to the netherworld. I don't think we've had a person named Shurumi mentioned yet. So it's probably just maybe it could be one of the people that was traveling in the past time, because obviously in this episode we pretty much connect this area with the past. And that's all we really get from Regu at this time. Just seeing this area where a lot of people passed away at some point. Jumping to Riko's side, she's finally done her business. Somebody in the Discord, I'm sorry not shouting out names. Somebody in the Discord mentioned something. I didn't want to think about that. Mentioning the idea that I wonder if this toilet, maybe their value is, yes, restrooms. So I wonder if that's a hollow. Because she's like, it's really hard to go because this thing keeps licking you. I'm like, oh, that's so disgusting. Anyways, she gets up, tries to figure out where Regu and Nanachi is, goes to the front counter, buys another day, and then gets pointed to go outside. That's where she's looking around trying to find where Majikaja is. And then eventually being pointed to go down this alleyway because she's getting the entrance to all these hollows, and inside of the alleyway is a whole bunch of hollows crunched up. They eventually pull her in, start checking her out. She's yelling about the fact that you're going to have a balance again, which I was kind of curious. Like, I'm wondering at this point, like, are they really going to do this whole thing again? And they sure enough do. But the cool thing that kind of happens here is this maw creature that was destroyed in the last episode. Apparently it's regenerated itself, and it obviously really, really likes Minya. Like, we were mentioning the idea that Majikaja seemed like he was trying to, figure out a deal between the two of them, and eventually it getting destroyed over trying to press. It's obsessed with its butt. Again, this world is weird. But no, it saves it, rushes out, the balance starts happening, everything in there is getting tore up. And it was kind of an interesting thing here because Riko, being the way she is, she goes to leave. This moth thing's really upset because Minya's leaving it once again. So Riko comes back and, says, okay, let's go together. And so they have like this little kind of frolicking thing as Ma and Riko and Minya are walking off together. It was sweet, but at the same time, I really don't like this Ma thing. I really don't like its obsession with Minya's butt. But no, the whole scene of Riko in the alleyway, I knew it was going to be unsettling, and yeah, it was already turning unsettling. Lots of huffy puffy looking hollows wrapping themselves around Riko. It looked it was very unsettling. But again, goes to credit to this world. This world is very unsettling. There's laws to this world, but it's really just around the balance system. Everything else is like, there is no real laws. And the last scene that we had with Riko, she goes to a restaurant where here's the other WTF moment. She goes to this restaurant where something smells good. She figures out what smells good, and it's this plate with this big old huge round ball that she pokes. It busts open. It smells really good, and she's just eating away at it. And then, yes, this lady that actually can speak her language comes forward and says, yeah, I'm the only one that can make roasted testicles. So she was just chowing down on, I don't know, their version of Rocky Mountain oysters or something. I don't know. It was yuck. Anyways, Riko's kind of interested in the idea of, that you do speak my language. And she's like, oh yeah, there's several people that can, including Ougonkyou. Yes, Ougonkyou is right over here, and he looks like a hollow. So there's that one. There's one of the 4 people technically from the history. So technically right now, this tribal girl, which I can never say her name, Urumiui, she, I think, is going to be Faputa. Ougonkyou, who was the leader of this group that came in from the past, he is this person at the restaurant. And then, yes, later on, technically, through Nanachi's perspective, we get to see that Belloff apparently is here, and yes, it looks like Iluko is seemingly the core of this village. So that was all interesting and very disturbing. Like, everything around Riko was just plain out, just very unsettling. But yes, Nanachi obviously is where we're starting to build up some story stuff. Again, technically revealing that Ougonkyou is here, and he looks like he's a hollow. But Nanachi's side is where we're getting the story kind of starting to develop. Nanachi's walking around with Kaja, and eventually Kaja starts bringing up, getting value, because you're going to need value in order to buy things for Riko. And I like how Nanachi mentions the idea of, I wonder how I can produce value. Well, I wonder if I should go over there and step on that hollow over there. Maybe that'll produce value. And I'm like, what, like a step-on fetish? Are we playing it on a step-on fetish? Yeah, this writer doesn't shy away from fetishes. That's obviously a thing. The toilet, the tentacle things, all that stuff. And lots of butts. But here's where Kaja starts bringing up some random information as he's asking what Nanachi's value is. Nanachi says the only values I have is Miti, Riko, and Regu. That's the only thing of value to me. Everything else does not value to me. And this is where Kaja starts throwing out some random lines that are really starting to pique interest here. He says, I like that Riko one. I really want her. You seem to know her well, even though Belloff and the 3 sages are using her. Referencing that these 3 sages are the ones that built this place. Then, in reference to Miti, says Miti, the mass of curse that the masked one left behind. And this obviously sets off Nanachi. Who left who behind? I'm assuming the masked person's going to be Bondrewd, and obviously the who being Midi. So obviously wanting to know more information, Kaja takes Nanachi all the way to Belloff, which Belloff seemingly is this big, gigantic serpentine thing. And yes, sitting next to Belloff is Miti. Mitty, sitting right there, right next to him. And then that cuts to another scene where it looks like Iluko from the past. Long red hair. She's sitting in the middle of all the balance type stuff. So, and yeah, she says something to the effect of, once a treasure has been found, one's value will transition and one's journey will end. So, let's unpack these final scenes. Now, I didn't really realize until just now that he said Bellof and the Three Sages. So that's implying that it could be maybe a bad translation, or maybe me reading it wrong. It could be implying that Bellof is one of the Three Sages, and the Three Sages being Iluko, Bellof, and Ougonkyou. They're already stating that Ougonkyou is a sage. Now, I thought Ougonkyou was naming them sages, and Ougonkyou wouldn't be a sage, but it seems to be implying right now that Ougonkyou is a sage. And again, sage is the titles that Ougonkyou was giving everybody when they were traveling to this location to find the abyss. So the sage idea is something Ougonkyou made up, but it seems like they're applying that to him as well. Bellof obviously was one of the sages. He's now this big serpentine, apparently. Iluko obviously was also named one of these sages in the past visions. And it does seem like, again, Iluko is sitting in the middle of all this stuff that balances. So my assumption at this point is that Iluko has created the shadows that balance everything. Probably something happened in the past where people got greedy, everybody was turning into hollows. She wanted to create like an environment where everybody could kind of stay, like a stasis of some sort. And so she created this place, everybody got greedy, so she then created some sort of balancing system to kind of balance things, and that's what she is. I think the balance system is Iluko. If Bellof is not one of the Three Sages, and they're saying specifically Bellof and the Three Sages created this place, that makes me believe that probably Faputa or Irumyui is going to be one of these sages as well. And creating this place is probably around the idea of, yes, the establishment that I mentioned earlier with Iluko, creating this area, creating the balance system, but also just an area that is kind of encompassed within inside of this barrier that everybody can live on. This is the place they were trying to look for, and I think once everything goes downhill, they wanted to create a place where they stay. Now, that gets into the question mark about Mitty. I don't believe that is Mitty. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think Mitty that Nanachi is seeing right now is going to be some sort of reproduction, something to draw Nanachi in and give up the adventure just to be with Mitty. So their idea is to present, I think it's like a treasure they're wanting to create and go, here, you want this? Stay here, get comfortable, remain here with everybody else. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring in Nanachi, transition into value, and become a part of this system. And I think it's going to take a while. They're going to be very obviously excited to see Mitty again, but I think eventually they're going to realize, yeah, I don't think this is real. So I'll be curious to see if they end up doing that with Regu and Riko as well, creating something of value for them. Maybe creating Riko's mom, giving something of value for her to stay. Creating, I don't know what they would do with Regu, honestly. Maybe just knowing that Riko stays, Regu would too. Because I say that because I really do think that final statement says a lot. Once your treasure has been found, one's value will be transitioned and one's journey will end. Found Mitty, change the value, journey ends. The thing I kind of skipped past was Kaja, when they were at the marketplace, mentioning to Nanachi that you know her well even though Bellof and the Three Sages are using her. That's a big question mark. What exactly... I'll be curious to find out what that is about. Like, I have zero predictions on that one. What is Bellof doing to use Riko? It also had quite a bit in this episode really having Regu reflecting on what he was and what he is now. On the question mark of why would you stay with those humans? They don't last long. Regu's really questioned himself, well, yeah, I don't really know. What would my past self say? Like, what would my old self say to the situation that I'm in? That, yes, technically Riko is not going to last forever. But anyways, cool stuff. Really looking forward to the next episode. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode, impressions of episode 4 of Made in Abyss, second season. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know with all this whole stuff. Are you getting excited into this information as I am? I think I'm just eating it up. Like, I was very late to watching this episode, and when I finally went to watch it, I'm like, gosh, there's so much stuff in here, and so much cringing, so much uneasiness, so many great animation pieces. Like, that whole opening segment of Faputa first confronting Regu, just the animation was gorgeous. It was so gorgeous. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy this video as always. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.